All right, so I'm going to be talking about this new one-level data comparing ACDF to circumferential fusion uses minimally invasive posterior cervical system. And I'm from Tulane. Here are my disclosures, obviously, with Providence Medical. So we all know that one-level ACDFs and two levels do really well with a fusion rate 90 to 95%. When we start looking at 3 or 4 levels, the data is a lot of retrospective studies, and the fusion rate varies from the 4 levels we know fail pretty well, pretty high without posterior stabilization of like 40 to 50%. But once you get to 3 levels, if you ask a lot of surgeons, the water's kind of muddy there. And a lot of the studies are retrospective, talking about non-union rates from 20% to 40%, and on average around 30 to 35%. And so we've never really looked at this prospectively. So this study was published this September, and it looked at ACDF versus circumferential stabilization at 24 months. And so what was done in the study? So the objective was to compare ACDF versus ACDF and posterior stabilization. And this is a prospective randomized control study, FTIDE, 18 sites, 227 subjects, and what was the indication? It was any patient that was indicated for 3-level ACDF for degenerative disc disease with radiculopathy or myelopathy spanning from C3 to 7, and they allowed smokers, diabetics, and advanced stage osteopenic patients. And this is the procedure they were talking about in a little bit more detail. It's a titanium cage with allograft bone and 2 screws to fixate it. These are the 18 sites. My colleague, Dr. Tender at LSU, was the lead person in New Orleans. So what was done, so in the control arm, they did an ACDF, plated ACDF, 3 levels, with structural allograft. And then in the tissue-sparing circumferential group, they did the plated ACDF in addition to this posterior cervical stabilization system, which consisted of this titanium cage filled with allograft bone inserted into the facet in a minimally invasive technique, and 2 screws, 1 cranial, 1 caudal, into the lateral mass to fixate it. And there's about so 227 subjects enrolled, about 110 in both groups, and at 12 months there's 100 subjects in both groups, and then at 24 months follow-up there's around 60 in both groups. And so if you look at the patient demographics, there's no significant difference between the two. 25% in both groups were over age 65. About 50% of the patients had a BMI greater than 31, and what's interesting compared to a lot of the cervical disc replacement IDE studies is that they allowed smokers, so around 15% in both groups, and then 15% of diabetics in both groups. So what was the primary endpoint? So the initial endpoint was radiographic endpoint at 12 months, which looked at 2 criteria: is bridging trabecular bone across the end plates on CT, and less than 2 degrees of angular motion on flexion extension on cervical radiographs. And this wasn't done at the local level. Everything was sent to in Houston, Texas, to a central radiology lab where they evaluated it. And the secondary endpoints included clinical success now at 24 months. This included the radiographic criteria for fusion above, and also an improvement in NDI as seen here, and a maintenance or improvement in the neurological status, and then no further surgery needed at the index level. So what was found? So at 12 months, as you can see here, there was a significant amount of fusion in the circumferential group as expected. So in the ACDF group, at 12 months, there was only 17% fusion rate, and then compared to 61%, and then at 24 months, it continues to increase. What's interesting about this is that, I've always thought at 1 year is when you see the fusion, and after that, if they have symptoms. But the study shows that, it almost doubles the fusion rate going from 12 months to 24 months, and even in the ACDF group, which is kind of interesting to me. So why such a low fusion rate? Because a lot of the other studies we saw at 30%, which at 2 years it is, only a 30% non-union rate, whereas this at a lot higher. And so the reason for that is they use such stringent radiographic criteria, the CT scan and flexion extension films at the central radiology lab. And so here it is again, as you can see here. If you look at the composite fusion success rate, it was only 17% at 12 months in the ACDF group versus 61% in the circumferential group. And it's really due to that CT scan, as you can see there. If you look at the CT, when they look at the bridging trabecular bone, it was only 22%, whereas in the circumferential it was 63%. But if you look at cervical flexion extension angular motion, it increases the ACDF fusion rate to 45%. What's also good to find here is that most of the non-unions only happen just at one level. As you can see here, 46% versus 23% in the circumferential group. It's rare to get all three levels not to heal. Looking at 24 months clinical success rate. So the composite endpoint, which included all the clinical success and also the fusion success rate, was only 51% in the CCF group versus 23%. And the reason this is so low is that these criteria are so rigid compared to most of the other retrospective studies, which is the surgeon evaluating, and that's why. And the key point here is the amount of revisions needed is much higher in the ACDF compared to the circumferential fusion. So looking at patient-recorded outcomes, as you can see here, there's a significant improvement compared to baseline in both the ACDF and the circumferential group at 12 months and 24 months. But there's significantly more improvement in the arm and neck pain in the circumferential group compared to the ACDF. I mean, these graphs also show that we know the ACDF is a very successful procedure overall, but how can we make it better, right? And so that's the next step kind of here, showing that we can make it even better for successful surgery. Why the reason for revision? So in the circumferential group, one had to be revised because one of the cages was slightly medial, and they had some radiculopathies that had to be removed. In the ACDF group, most of it was due to pseudoarthrosis needing posterior fixation, and then one for removal of the plate due to adjacent segment disease and had to be extended inferiorly. And then if you look at the quality of life measures here, the EQ5D5L measures general healthcare-related quality of life, 1 being the best possible and 0 being death. As you can see here, that the circumferential fusion results in a substantially more improvement in healthcare-related quality of life. And if you look at patient success rate at 12 months, 93% in the circumferential group versus 85. And at 24 months, it decreases a little bit, but still significantly more. What about operative time? So yes, it does add about 47 minutes more. That didn't include the flip time. If you include the flip time, it goes to an hour and a half. It really increases blood loss because it's minimally invasive by 10 cc's, and the length of stay is still only 1 night. So what do we learn from overall from this randomized control study is that doing the circumferential fusion minimally invasive improves the fusion rate, and it fuses faster at 12 months. They're significantly more fused and earlier clinical success. As you can see, about 45% at both 12 and 24 months in circumferential fusion compared to the ACDF, and a substantially less number of revisions needed. Overall, no increase in the length of stay and just a slight increase in the operative time. And I find this to be, in my practice, great in terms of I have some of these patients who present at a year with some recurrent radiculopathy or some significantly increased axial neck pain. In the past, I never wanted to offer them an open posterior cervical because it's a miserable procedure. But now you can offer them this surgery that they can go home, honestly, a lot of mine the same day.